voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, out at Hy-Vee in Eagan on Tuesday, October 29th. Stop by from 4 to 5 p.m. to meet PA and Vikings defensive back Cam Bynum. Thanks to Hy-Vee and Pepsi, plus a live Q&A event to follow. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome, middle part of the radio show. And from Southern California, here comes Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Chris is into his fourth full season coaching the Howl, and he joins us now. Hey, Chris, Paul Allen, how you been?
Hey, PA. I'm good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Same Beverly Hills Hotel where my son and I saw you?
No, actually, this time we're downtown next door to the former Staples, now Crypto.com arena at LA Live. So. Oh,
wow. Holy cow. Did the Lynx getting to the WNBA finals like sap the road hotel fund or something like that?
No, we mix it. I mean, we choose our hotels based on our schedule a little bit. Like when you're coming, you kind of quick in and out. It's a lot easier here. If you're in town for a few days, then we might shake it up. So
there's no doubt. And I said Chris into his fourth full season coaching the Minnesota Timberwolves. Chris, think about that. Fourth full season coaching here. And there was a time, I would say you were mired in Great Britain, but I know you enjoyed the time. But you were there for a decade, believing this honor never would happen. And now you're starting your fourth full season. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, appreciate that. Sometimes, I don't think we look back enough sometimes in our life and some of the parts of the journeys that we've been on and how special it was at the time and how meaningful it is overall and really how it helped you get to where you are now.
What do you remember about your very first game you coached as head coach of the Wolves? It was against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I remember, being just kind of a little bit overwhelmed, not necessarily by the job, but just the expediency of it all, like how fast it had come, and then boom, right away, on the sidelines with another team trying to learn everything, my players, etc. But one thing that did stick out to me during that game was we put a very young Jaden McDaniels on Giannis, and we didn't double him in the post. And I remember saying to Jaden afterwards, I apologized. I said, we're never going to do that again. We're never going to leave you on an island down there against Giannis. But it was a bit of a crash course for everybody.
So that's the partial season. Then you get four full. Well, into this season, it'll be your fourth. What was it like coaching with a mask?
Yeah. Oh, it was great. You could yell at the referees. They didn't know what you were really saying to them. I like that piece of it.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? I didn't say anything. Well, yeah, Chris, there are no fans here. It had to be you. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, that whole era is surreal when you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was bizarre. It was tough to communicate. Very, very hard to communicate. But yeah, sometimes that kind of feels like just another place and time for us.
Right. And you were with Toronto before you came to the Wolves. So assumedly here, and I should know this, when the NBA was in the bubble, you were in the bubble with the Raptors, right?
I was in the bubble with New Orleans.
Oh, with New Orleans. What was it like being in the bubble?
Yeah, the bubble was an interesting experience, of course. I look at more of almost like a social experiment, but the basketball ended up being super high level. I do remember having some great practices there because it was the first time we were all able to get back and, play some basketball and there was really nothing else to do when you got right down to it. So players really look forward to practicing. We practiced for I think a number of weeks before we actually started playing down there. And the arenas were these makeshift arenas that they made, kind of virtual arenas, and the shooting was high level because all the dimensions were nice and cozy.
Yeah.
And there was no travel and players were super fresh. So the basketball was really good. There was a fatigue factor, no doubt about it. Emotional and mental just as much as physical. I was in for about 48, 50 days, something like that. Some teams were in nearly twice as much, it felt like, or another 25 days or something when it was all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
It became a little bit of an endurance test, really. It was just kind of bizarre. I mean, I don't have any great desire to go back to Disney anytime soon, if that helps answer your question.
Well, I mean, we're just kind of riffing here before we talk about Julius Randle and the Lakers and DeMar DeRozan and stuff like that with the Kings. But it just triggered a couple of memories, just like bubble-related memories. The first one we won't elaborate on, but I'll never forget the story that came out. I think he was with the Rockets, Daniel House and the COVID tester. Well, we'll just leave that right there. But the very first story that popped, do you remember Rashawn Holmes breaking protocol, leaving the bubble to pick up a pizza?
Yeah, I mean, there was I can actually remember the very first day that we were there. I went for a walk with our head coach, Alvin Gentry, at the time, and we had inadvertently walked off the property. Like, we didn't really realize where the boundary had stopped.
Yeah.
And, security guards were kind of not fully clued in at the time. It was new to everybody. And fortunately, we were just on like a walking trail that kind of continued through the woods. We didn't really know had crossed over some sort of imaginary boundary. And they just kind of shepherded us back on. But it was kind of bizarre. I remember when the NBA gave us our welcome talk, they talked about, of course, all the COVID protocols, and they went through all the do's and don'ts and everything. It was about an hour-long chat. And one of the last things they said, because we were there in like August, September, coming up in the heart of hurricane season, they said, oh, yeah, and we'll probably get hit by a couple hurricanes while we're here, too. Oh, and be careful, there's gators around and snakes. And I was like, golly, where do they put us, What's worse, the COVID or the natural disasters and man-eating animals, so...
Well, as punchy as you can be, and you like to crack wise, and you're very smart, I'm surprised you didn't say, other than that, Miss Lincoln, how was the play? Just like rattling them off for you.
It was just one kind of bizarre experience or interaction after another.
Yeah. All right, season opener tonight. What do you think about tonight? It's LeBron, AD, the Lakers. How do we win?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. Of course, this team's rejuvenated. They've obviously made a coaching change, and whenever that happens, like, there's always a bunch of new energy and new excitement for everybody. And they have not a lot of new pieces on the roster. The rookie Dalton Connect is good, really good. He's going to be able to help them. Great size, range shooter, decent physicality this early in his pro career. But it all comes down to containing him in transition and really, like, making life as hard as you can for AD. LeBron's going to do his thing. AD's always been the barometer for their success. He's a phenomenal player. And in the beginning of the season, everybody still is excited and thinks they're really, really good and think they have a great chance. So, it's going to come back to getting back in transition and being tight around Anthony Davis.
What maybe JJ Redick throws it back to the Rick Pitino days with the Knicks, and he picks up man full court and does like a full court press. Any shot at that?
I mean, listen, I haven't been with JJ and coaching him, and actually JJ and I were together in the bubble, so there's your full circle kind of moment. But JJ he's extremely smart, and one thing he is fearless. Like, he's not afraid to try anything, do anything, think about anything. And so I wouldn't be surprised that anything coming our direction tonight.
You mentioned the name Dalton Connect, and I wasn't super familiar with the guy until, the last couple of weeks. He started at Northern Colorado. Well, he started at junior college, then he went to Northern Colorado, then he went to Tennessee. And in reading some Lakers previews last night to get ready for this, what do we know about Dalton Connect? I mean, he's kind of like the low-key rave of Southern California for his skills.
Yeah, he, to your point, he kind of been a bit of a late bloomer because he just, has excelled at all these levels through college. And last year he was a guy that really burst onto the scene, and the guy we coveted at a high level through the draft process too. But he's got good size. He can really shoot the ball. He's got a quick release, and has toughness. Like big, pretty thick body. But moves really well. He's an older guy coming into the draft, which at this point in time really helps you and helps an established team like the Lakers. And he's kind of plug and play for them.
You just made him sound a little bit like Tony Kukoc. Does he play like Kukoc at all?
Yeah, he does have, he definitely has the ability to shoot from that distance, but he doesn't have, I wouldn't say he has Kukoc's playmaking ability.
Right.
Probably a little bit more Wally Zerbiak than Kukoc.
And Sacramento after that. So you head up to Northern California. And with the Kings, do you think they'll be much different, dramatically different with DeMar DeRozan joining Fox and Sabonis?
Yeah, I think, they're still, I think they've gotten better. There's no doubt you add a piece like DeMar, gives you another option to close games. They've been such a movement team. They've been so successful, one of the best movement teams in the league, playing around and off of Sabonis. And then you got the speed of Fox, and now you have like a change of pace guy with DeMar DeRozan. So it gives them all looks that they really need. It's just going to be how well they can kind of orchestrate that when the game needs it most. But I think, with that addition, you certainly have gotten a lot better.
What do you, Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, season opener tonight at the LA Lakers. Chris is into his fourth full season coaching the Wolves. Julius Randle, what are you expecting tonight?
Yeah, I expect a full force Julius Randle. This is where he started his career. Julius is one of those guys, I think he always likes to play well against his former teams. But yeah, he's fit in really well. We expect him to give us that physicality at both ends of the floor, create transition opportunities, been getting to the heart of the paint and really finding his teammates well. He's such an experienced player that he's comfortable now in a lot of different situations. So we haven't seen a lot of, kind of lag time in getting him settled in. We need him to be a little bit more aggressive. He's almost been too deferential out there at times, but I think that all comes from a good place, and we love in the playmaking.
And any idea why the Lakers gave up on him?
Yeah, LeBron James. That was the summer that they had to clear a lot of room to sign LeBron. I think Julius. I don't know exactly the details, but I think Julius was extension eligible that year, so they really couldn't extend him. And I can't remember if we got him in free agency or trade with or sign and trade to New Orleans. But they really had to create room to bring in LeBron. So
how do you handle Conley's minutes at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I think the goal is mid-20s, 26 minutes probably. If I had to pick a number, would be it. Talking to him, like how they come is just as important as how many. Trying to keep the runs, short but productive as you can. That's a balance. So he can also feel the game and get into a little bit of a rhythm. The good thing with Mike, at different times in his career here, he's had to do different things. Sometimes he's had to step up his scoring. Like when he first got here, we needed him to score. When Cat went down last year again, we needed him to score more. And so through those periods of play, it takes more out of you, of course, when you're, asked to score a little bit more. But now we have a lot of scoring options around him. So I think that should help manage his minutes somewhat. and then just communicating with them as the season goes along. Like, hey, how you feeling? He says he feels great. He's ready. He's such a great pro, takes care of himself at a high level. So we trust him, and that's where it starts.
Can DiVincenzo give you point guard minutes, even in short spurts?
Categorically, yes. He can give us point guard minutes in long spurts. What we've discovered with him is that he has even more game than we were able to see on full display elsewhere.
Wow.
Fits really well alongside all of our other backcourt combinations. Is a really good Rudy partner. It just keeps things simple and makes the right play 9 times out of 10.
Lastly, Chris, and thanks for the time. I know it's early out there, and best of luck tonight, my man. But how hard, Anthony Edwards, how hard does Anthony Edwards get on himself during this journey to superstardom?
One thing that's really admirable and I love about Ant is he's pretty consistent in his mood and his personality. Like, he is hard on himself because he forces himself to work and he puts the work in, but he's not super moody. He's not living and dying with every success or failure. He's obviously, he's emotional. He plays, with great joy. We see all that, but you'll occasionally see some frustration out of him. But, generally he is taking the long-term approach. He understands that process, and he doesn't really get too hard on himself in the way I've seen other players.
My man, have fun tonight. Congratulations heading into your 4th season. Doing wonderful, wonderful work. Thanks for the time. Weekly 9 to noon, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland and 2harvest.org. Appreciate you greatly. Talk to you soon.
Thank
See you, buddy.
PA. Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Yep. Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. The scribe, Ben Goessling, covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune. He joins us around the corner at FM 100.3 KFAN. But first, here comes Maxwell to give away some moolah.
The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword credit at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword credit. Enter it now at KFAN.com.
Fan.
Comedian and podcaster Tom Segura is hitting the road. Catch him when he brings his Come Together tour to XL Energy Center on Friday, April 18th. Don't miss out on this hilarious night of comedy. Tickets are on sale now. Get the full details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Welcome back, 9 to noon, here at TCO, Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center in Eagan. And every time we're here, we have the pleasure of being joined by Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, at Ben Goessling. Weekly guest provided by Standard Heating and Air.
Standard Heating and Air. StandardHeating.com. And here comes the scribe indeed. Hello, Mr. Scribe. How are you?
I am doing well. I am just trying to get everything done in this short week that it's a scramble for the Vikings. Probably less so for reporters, but it's still kind of a scramble. So
have you,
getting through it.
Do as an elite father, and you brought your family to London for the London venture.
Yep.
Maybe you missed one. Maybe it was bring them to Los Angeles, for this game, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday after, hang out in SoCal, go to the beaches and see Mickey.
That would have been an option. Yeah, we've done like the Disney World thing when they were a little bit younger. We went to Orlando, but we have not done Disneyland. So yeah, I think we're in kind of a rotation now where there's some West Coast games coming up. So we'll have to hit
How
that
old are
one
your
at some
kids?
point. 12 and 9.
All right, there's this, and I'm scarred for life. The It's a Small World. It's kind of like it's the
Disney?
slow boat ride
it's
at
phenomenal.
Disneyland.
I lived in San Diego for like 4 years as a kid, so
Yeah.
we used to drive up there.
All
So
right,
I was
stay
on
away
that thing
from
when
that.
I was little.
Okay, so you can cross that one off
Yeah.
the list. Maybe just avoid that with the
Yeah.
or maybe that's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
I-
they're probably a little old for that.
Yeah, stay away from it.
But Disneyland Space Mountain is the A topic.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to wait 2 hours to get up, but Space Mountain is Disneyland immortality.
Right.
Now, this just is further proves metaphorically the difference between like the Goessling family living in San Diego for like 4 years. And that's where Nordo and I met in San Diego.
Okay.
Where your family's taking you up to It's a Small World at Disneyland. Our families were taking us to Agua Caliente Racecourse in Tijuana
Yeah.
to learn how to bet high lie.
Yeah, there was your family. There was I don't know what the fork in the highway system looked like,
Yeah.
but it's this way Los
Different direction on
Angeles,
I-5.
Disneyland, and this way south.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our parents, my mother, his mother, took
Yeah.
us respectively
Agua Caliente.
There you
to
go.
the right end or the wrong side, depending upon how you look
Yeah.
at it, the border.
Correct.
And you were on the It's a Small World ride.
I
so.
was I'm trying to think if there was any. I mean, I guess I went to a game at the Forum when I was a kid, so right next to Hollywood
Oh,
Park,
sweet.
right
Yeah.
next to now
Where I worked
SoFi.
5 years.
Yeah, yeah,
at Hollywood Park.
Yeah,
When did that close?
Hollywood Park?
Yeah, 10, 12 years ago,
Okay.
something like that.
What years were you at Hollywood Park?
19, Hollywood Park, Santa Anita, and Del Mar. 89 to 93.
Okay, so I was there like 87 and
Oh, wow.
91. So I would have been at the Forum.
Yeah.
And this would have been like, I can't remember what time of year this game
Okay.
would have been, but probably after racing season. But yeah, not far away. So we would have been in the same part of the world.
In the Hollywood Park days, I think my last year before I went to Northern California, just south of San Francisco, to become a racetrack announcer at a place now defunct Bay Meadows Racecourse. And so we're in the press box, and the Jeff Anderson, the media relations manager for Hollywood Park, is a guy who used to write for the Herald Examiner, and he covered the Oakland and LA Raiders for a long time, named Jack Disney, God rest his soul. And there was a columnist who, with whom I became good friends. I was cub reporter guy for Pasadena Star News and San Gabriel Valley Tribune, Stringer with a trasher. With a trasher hooked up to the phone to send the stories for USA Today.
So a lot of newspaper jargon there. Some of it current, some
we
of
got
it not. But
we got Agapage here. We got Pike
Pike
there.
Yep.
So that was my lot in life then. Alan Malamud was a columnist for the Herald Examiner. He wrote this little strip column.
Okay.
It was super popular. LA Times had Jim Murray. So we would see them all the time and stuff like that. I think it was 1993, my final year there. I think I arrived, on a Wednesday for Wednesday racing, had gone to the backside, chatted with some D-Wayne Lucas, some famous trainers to get ready for whatever story, got up to the press box, and that was right in the thick of the Rodney King trial.
Yeah.
And so we get up to the press box, settle in, get the trasher out, get ready to write, do all that stuff that I've seen you do a million times now at US Bank Stadium or across the Great Divide. Jack Disney comes running into the press box, and he says, the Rodney King trial has come to a conclusion, and here's what happened. So, and now here we are in Inglewood.
Yep.
And Inglewood was different then than it is now.
Yep.
They've cleaned it up a little bit over about, say, a 10-mile circumference.
Yep.
And
no longer Inglewood, always up to no good, as Dr. Dre said in 95 or so.
So we're by Crenshaw Boulevard, we're by Manchester, we're by Slauson, we're by Florence, all the streets everybody's heard. And Disney, Jack runs in, and he says, well, here's the deal. We're not racing today, and because this is what's happening on Manchester Boulevard.
Yeah.
Right now, it's starting to bubble. It was the Reginald Denny Day.
Yeah.
That was the Reginald Denny Day, like later in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And he said, you guys have a quick decision to make. You can either leave right now and go 100 miles per hour up Manchester to the Harbor Freeway, or get over to 494 by Torrance, or if you don't, you're going to be sleeping here probably for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, got the Honda Civic, and up Manchester, that's when you started to see the ants marching. That's when you started to see people coming out. I saw Rock go through a window. It was just all starting to bubble.
Yeah.
And that, when you say Hollywood Park, that's like one of the first things that comes to mind for me.
That's,
So, well, that's where SoFi is now.
Yep.
And they still have the Hollywood Park Casino. So like they kept the Hollywood Park Casino. They eliminated the racetrack, put SoFi there. And speaking of that game, just you take this wherever you want to take it, because you're an elite injury report mind. You have to scrutinize it and you have to deduce when you see it. And when I opened it yesterday, when it was sent to all of us, and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, Reisner, full.
Yeah.
I mean, it had limited. So I look back at a couple. Limited. Hey, full on a Monday. What do you think?
I thought that was interesting as well. That was kind of the first thing that grabbed my eye when I read back through it, because they're estimated this week. They're not actually going to go through a full practice. Obviously, it's a short week, and they're trying to just get guys back to the point where they're ready to play by Thursday night. There's not really a lot of time to go do anything terribly strenuous on the practice field. They'll have some walkthroughs and that sort of thing. But all of the practice reports you're going to see this week are estimations of what they would be doing. But the fact that they had Reisner in there as a full participant the first day of the week, I did think was significant, especially given another tough day for Ed Ingram on Sunday. I'm going to be very interested to see where that goes, because we asked O'Connell about it on Friday, and he said, we're working through that. We want to have the best five. We want that to be a competitive situation. So, kind of like we talked about last week, I think that is a very fluid spot in this lineup. And the fact that he was a full participant, I thought was interesting.
Do you care that it's a short week? Well, does that really matter? I mean, everything's kind of simulated. Like you said, it's a walkthrough. So if you were going to make a move like that, maybe
would you want to see him in a full
Colts game
practice
a week from now?
Yeah, you could make that argument too. Do you want to see him go through a full practice, especially when it's playing on the right side where he's played most of his career on the left? Would they want to have a better kind of foundation for that before they make that switch? That's certainly something they could be considering. But yes, I did think that was a particularly interesting nugget in the injury report yesterday.
I can't remember. I think it was Brandon Fusco that made the switch from left to right, and he made it sound like this was one of the more difficult things. And obviously, I mean, just there's an instinctual, there's a learned natural rhythm, I suppose, to the body work, the footwork, etc. But Fusco, I remember back in the day, he made it sound like this was climbing a mountain, just moving from the left to the right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to laugh about it. I'm not the guy doing it, but it seemed odd to me in some respects. But hey, I don't know.
Well, you hear some players over the years. I can't even think of how many times we've asked this question, because covering the Vikings in the time that I've done it has meant a lot of changes at the guard positions, especially. So you'll hear some guys say it's not that big of a deal. It's basically doing all the same stuff, but just on the other side. And then there will be some guys that say, yes, it is different, because where am I turning as part of double teams, or am I dealing with things in pass protection? Kind of where do my eyes go first? All of that stuff is completely flipped. So for some guys, I think it is a bigger change, and there's a lot to work through there. So, would they want to see him kind of go through a full practice before they would make that type of a change? That is, I think, a very interesting component to this whole thing. It's not a normal week. It's not Sunday to Sunday, so that does change some of the math here. But, that's certainly one I'm watching pretty closely.
What about Hawkinson?
I will.
If you were to guess.
If I were to guess, I think it's the Colts game.
Okay.
I think, I mean, again.
I guessed Rams earlier, but then I'm like, why am I guessing that? I felt it was the Colts for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're excited for him to be back. I think he talked last week about how good he's feeling, but there again, I especially think coming off of an ACL, do you want to see him go through a full practice, kind of get at least one full day of work before they do it?
Good point.
That would be my hunch there, is it's Colts, but we'll see on that one too. I think they certainly could use him.
What do you think Thursday night is going to be like for Kevin O'Connell, who obviously won a Super Bowl at SoFi with the Rams?
Yeah, we asked him about that a little bit yesterday, and I actually sat down with him Friday, because I'm writing later this week for Thursday, I think, on what he has learned as a play caller, how he's evolved as a play caller, and a lot of that, of course, is what Sean McVay did for him, just to give him opportunities, kind of like he does for Wes Phillips now in the preseason, where it's, hey, you call this stretch of the game or periods in practice, hey, I want you to call this one live, and kind of give somebody that experience to develop into that role. He had called plays a little bit for Washington after Jay Gruden got fired. Bill Callahan takes over as the interim, and then O'Connell becomes the play caller in the end of that 2019 season. But I think a lot of what he has learned about how to approach it, how to sequence things, came from Sean McVay. So, I mean, he talked very fondly of McVay yesterday, said he's still one of his closest friends in the league. And the last time he was in that building, unless he's been there for something I don't know about, the last time he was in there for a football game was the Super Bowl that he won as the offensive coordinator of the Rams a couple of days before he becomes the Vikings head coach. So I think there's probably a lot of emotion. There's a lot of sentiment to it. And he is a guy that, I mean, you see it from time to time. He for as much as he tries to be Mr. Process, he's got some emotion to it, and he doesn't really deny that. I mean, you see some of that come out of him. So I think there's probably a little bit of that for him this week, but it's also such a short week that you probably can't give a ton of time to think through those things.
Now, Nordo brought this up earlier, and I hadn't really thought about it, but it's the fan component at SoFi, where like Niners fans, when they're playing the Rams, well, that's fan immortality because not only are they there en masse, but they use their funds and they're close to the field. Like they try to circle the field for like 8 rows, and that's where all of them are.
Oh, it's Silicon Valley money buys good seats at SoFi.
There you go. Antithetical to the Tenderloin, where they can't even go to Oakland Athletics games anymore, but are at 3-2. So this being a Thursday night game, and MEA's done. And you got work, and you got Billy and Johnny and Christy and Susie and Tamika and Antoine with their super special traveling sports and all that kind of stuff. So like the Vikings fans at SoFi Thursday, is it fair to say that like from a local standpoint, there won't be as many as there would be were it a Sunday? But correct me if I'm wrong here. I think San Diego has the biggest like United States of America Vikings fan club. And that's obviously, 90 minutes, 2.5 hours away.
Right. Yeah. There's probably people that have relocated and said, you know what, enough of the cold weather. I'm going to California. There'll probably be some of that. I would think there's probably people that have relocated to the LA area. It does change things when it's a weeknight like that.
Do you think there'll be a lot?
I think there'll be a lot. I think one of the things I have learned over the last it seems like this has picked up in the last couple of years especially, is the number of Vikings fans that get on the road. Maybe it's harder to get in at US Bank Stadium. Maybe that's changed some of those things. I don't know. But I have learned, do not underestimate the willingness of Vikings fans to travel and make themselves heard and felt on the road. I expect there will be a fair amount of purple there on Thursday.
And props to Lions fans. I mean, we saw this a couple of years ago if you watched the first game of the year. After the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Lions are at Arrowhead, and they pull the upset. And then all the Lions fans, as they were interviewing players after the game, there were a lot of Lions fans at US Bank Stadium on Sunday.
You heard a few Jared Goff chants, and you heard some Let's Go Lions. I mean, there were definitely pockets of Honolulu blue in the stands. We saw that with the 49ers too. And this is starting to happen, I think, more just as you see tickets get on secondary markets. They just become a little more accessible to everybody.
And
if
you want to pay those ridiculous fees.
If you want to pay an arm and a leg to buy tickets and then put the fees on top of it and travel. I mean, for some people, I wrote about this a few years ago when they took over that soccer stadium, when they played the Chargers in 2019.
That was a great day.
Yeah, it was fun.
Ifeadi Odenigbo, though.
They blew them out. Yes, all of the fumble recoveries and the turnovers they created to win that game big. But I think some people make trips out of it. It becomes a vacation for people. This being a little bit after MEA, that may change things, but I would expect there's a fair amount of purple.
And speaking of Vikings fans, should Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, at Ben Goessling via Twitter. Follow him as 9 to Noon does. He's the scribe, courtesy of a Standard Heating and Air, StandardHeating.com. Vikings fans, should there be any concerns off the loss to the Lions, or just be like, all good here? We just went toe-to-toe with one of the very best, and we almost won onto the Rams.
Yeah, I think you could cut that either way, because certainly they looked like they belonged against that team, and that is a team now that has beaten them, I think, 4 in a row. So it is different than the Matt Patricia. Yes, it's a lot different than the Matt Patricia days. It's different than the old days where it was basically you put 2 wins on the schedule every year, whether it's the Lions.
Wayne Fonts.
Yeah. I mean, you can go down the line for a long time. Dan Orlovsky running out the back of the end zone, all that kind of stuff before he became ESPN broadcasting guy now.
Yeah, I mean, Orlovsky, I saw him this weekend on, like, he's the focal point analyst on some college football bit.
Yeah, and wasn't he calling one of the Monday night games the other night, too? I mean, he is everywhere, and he's really good, so it's fun. But yes, it is not that Lions team anymore, so I think you take some things from that. But O'Connell talked about it yesterday. He said, I'm not much into moral victories, and the number of formation penalties, the number of pre-snap procedural things that they had on Sunday, you could tell was still in his craw yesterday when I asked him about it. And
that Addison Jefferson thing on 3rd and 4. I bet you.
That too.
We both know him pretty well. I mean, if Addison, if whomever was in the wrong spot, I mean, that's going to work on his last nerve because now Darnold threw too hard and too high. But he may have had to because somebody else was there.
Right. But Addison kind of cut off the throwing lane a little bit.
So, I mean, that's going to work on his last nerve because that could have been the dagger.
It could have been the first down you needed to run some clock, and then you kind of go from there and make them use timeouts, and they're not able to get back in position. But, I mean, it's the offensive offside. I think Addison had one covering up Josh Oliver. There was the holdings, even the end of the game. Basically, if they get one guy covering Christian Darrisaw so that he's not the end man on the line of scrimmage, and you get that ball spike, because they got it spiked in time, you're trotting Will Reichard out from 68, and that's a NFL record field goal, but we've seen Will Reichard make a lot of 58-yarders with room to spare, so they would have given it a chance.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just curious, how often have you seen a wide receiver offside? Not even covering the bit, but he was actually just lined up on the wrong side of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, that one I have not seen very much. That was,
I mean,
you get to point at the guy, and the guy on the sideline, the ref will tell you if you're an L or not.
It's just, that's one of those things where, against, as he said, you're playing teams like that, and you're going to play them one more time with big stakes a week to 18. Maybe you see them again in the playoffs. You can't make mistakes like that and win those games. And if they do, they're 2 games up already. So, it's one of those where, yes, they looked like they belonged, but they also did a lot of things to keep themselves from being in a really, really good spot here coming through 6 games.
What was the Darrisaw illegal formation? Was it obvious?
The one at the spike?
After Naylor. Yeah.
I mean, in real time, you're trying to scramble and get a story done. So
but if you look at the end zone, or the sideline angle, you can see he's not in a normal left tackle spot,
right?
But he's close.
So I think we were talking about this a little bit after the game, and Kevin Seifert is a better officiating mind than I am, and he pointed this out that they typically will just call that procedurally on the tackle who is. I don't think it was actually on him. He was uncovered. Because if you look at it, they had 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, so that's illegal right there. You needed 7, and he had nobody to his outside. The end man on the line of scrimmage cannot be an ineligible receiver, so they needed either...
What?
It would have either had to be Naylor or
I thought it was
Johnny
Naylor.
Muntz. Somebody needed to be on Darrisaw's outside.
Oh, wow.
To cover Darrisaw up. Aaron Jones was like 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but I think that was just I'm going to freeze in position because all we're going to do is clock this ball, and I can't get over there in time. So they needed one guy covering Darrisaw so that he's not the end guy on the line, because basically there's nobody to his left. So if they get one guy there, they spike it, there's no penalty. Reichard kicks from 68.
And it's not a 50. I mean, Reichard has not missed field goals, extra points.
Nope.
We saw the 58, and it would have been good from 60, whatever.
Yeah.
Right upright, but still super high up on the upright. So if you had, you probably would get plus money odds here if it was a 67, 68.
Yeah.
And right there, you got 1 minute to make this decision. Would you bet yes, he'll make it, or no, he won't make it from 67 or 68? Say, I give you 2-1 odds on the yes.
I think I would bet that he makes it.
Wow.
Because we have seen it, whether it was that one on Sunday where he basically puts it, I think it hit like the edge of and the net is obviously there, but it hit so far back that I think people in the front row of the stands were able to get their hands on it. And the one I kind of go back to in training camp, he hit one from 50-something that they've got those posts with the cameras and the lights, the big beams up the berm from the practice field. They kind of got all of the tall grass, and then you go up that little hill. He hit one of those posts probably halfway up on the fly from 50-something
into the wind after walking to school through 6 feet of snow.
Like uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Both it's barefoot on the way to school. So we've seen the leg to make me think he's going to have a pretty good swing at that thing. I think O'Connell certainly sounded intrigued by it.
Ben Goessling, Standard Heating and Air. Thank you. More Vikings conversation with the Scribe after this.
Inflation Vacation is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com. Inflation Vacation is powered by 2 men and a junk truck.
Mr. Scribe, the Indy game has been flexed to Sunday Night Football, which is super special and super cool for newspaper beat writers and deadlines and good morning, isn't it?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, we're very excited about that one. I am not a coffee drinker, but those games are always like, okay, what form of caffeine can I get through this?
What's the answer?
I drink more pop than I should. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my vice. And
what about hot tea?
I should. Yeah, I mean, I have done that a couple times. I don't like it.
Nordo hates tea.
Yeah, I'm not the
I like peach tea.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, peach tea is good. But
do you like Snapple peach tea?
I think no.
I thought you just said you like peach tea.
No, sweet, sugary, sweet things hit me the wrong way. And teas are just so, and it's weird because I love just straight black coffee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's a taste to most teas that I think is just nothing short of disgusting.
Yeah.
But peach tea, for some reason, hits me the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, I suppose the ones that have caffeine in them probably are the sweet teas. But, you just fight through it.
Any idea why
I'm crazy about it.
Why they flexed this game?
Well,
I mean, Jacksonville,
Philly, right? That was the one
Jacksonville
before.
Sting. I mean, okay, I'm all right. 3-2. Why'd they flex the game?
I think some of it was because Packers Lions is that day too. I think so. I think a lot of people were like, "Why didn't they do that?" But the second Packers Lions game is a Thursday night, so that's already in prime time. Mm-hmm. And my guess is that both of those teams, I think you can play like 5 primetime games a year before it's the NFL. I think that's the NFL limit for one team.
Yeah.
So the fact that,
or if you're like Jacksonville, you get 5 primetime games in 20 years.
Yeah, that could be 2. There are different strokes for different folks, but I wonder if Fox either protected that or both teams had hit their quotas on night games. The Packers have like 4 night games in a row in December, which I have never seen before. So they may have been at their cap already.
I think their quarterback leads the NFL in interceptions.
Yeah. They're on TV a lot. And that Lions game is one of those. So I think that would have been the other candidate, but they didn't do it. So, yep, we get the Sunday night game for that one. And I'll get through it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Let me take a complete from flexing to wanting to see our stars flexing in the end zone.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, he's on pace for, I think it's just over 2 fewer targets a game than even in the shortened stretch. He was just over 10 a game last year in the 10 games he played. It was nearly 11 targets a game in 2022 when he played the full season. Is there an element to this, and you're trying to get the run game in the mix? I get it, but is there any part of this where it's like, do we need to actually get JJ involved even more so than he already is? I kind of feel like we do.
I would agree with that. I mean, they are running more, certainly, than they have in the past, and they also just haven't run that many plays. I mean, I think O'Connell talked about this. They only had like 50 plays or something in the game on
54.
Sunday. Yeah, it's not a lot. So that's part of it, I think, and you're seeing the way teams are playing him. But, yeah, I do think there is a need to do that. I mean, the second quarter on Sunday, he had 1 target. That's when the Lions go on that run, and then they come out right away in the third quarter. It's like 3 straight plays to Jefferson, and they score the touchdown at the end of that drive. And he's talked about this a lot of just trust me. And I think O'Connell certainly has structured this offense in a way that gives those opportunities. But some of that may come down to Darnold. Some of it may come down to figuring out ways that defenses can't take him away in the same way that they've done it. But, yeah, I do think there is an element of this, so don't overthink it. Just get your best player the ball as much as you can.
Last one. And the overarcher is, what do you think of Darnold through 6 games? Now, and until breaking some things down yesterday, after that interception, he kind of went lights out.
Yeah.
Like 11 of 15 or something like that, and good yardage, good pass. Okay, so, right. It was like, just think McCarthy Raiders preseason game.
Yeah.
Oh, great, cool, good to see you. Throws the pick, and then he's lights out after.
Yep.
So that's part of it. But it was really eating at me Sunday night and into the show yesterday that for a team that I genuinely believe can get to the Super Bowl, and despite the Barney the dinosaur facade or metaphorical facade that would be me, then not every single Vikings team do I think could get. I didn't like the 2017 team to get there.
Yeah,
2022, the way the defense started leaking late, I didn't think. If they got there, cool. But like for me, there have been 2 years, 2009 and this year, where I'm like, and I look at the landscape of the NFC.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's in Germany, and I saw Godwin last night on a cart.
Yeah.
So and so and so and so. It's just a lot of things are falling into place.
You're right.
So I'm like into that game, like, yeah, I mean, they're 5-0. I have immense respect for the Lions, but this Minnesota Vikings team is absolutely Super Bowl caliber. I don't feel that very often, and I kind of feel that vibe but into that game. But then the quarterback doesn't throw a touchdown for 9 quarters.
Yeah.
Basically 9 quarters, 5 and change to go. First half Lambeau, 14 to Jefferson.
Yep.
Nothing from then. Well, the red zone work, second half at Lambeau, all London. I think he was 0 of 4 in the red zone.
Yeah.
And it's fair to bring that up because, through the first 4 games, he was number 1 in the NFL for red zone touchdowns and red zone completion percentage.
Terrific.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, even in training, I'm going back to training camp, he was great in the red zone.
So 9 is a fat number. 9 is a stark change to go 9 quarters for a play calling head coach who puffs out his chest about his passing game, and he's right. It's really, really good. And we go 9 quarters without a touchdown. It was just eating at me. So started it, we'll end it this way. What do you think of Darnold through 6?
Yeah, I think all of that is fair because you have seen less efficiency in the red zone. He's missed some things accuracy-wise. I think there were a couple moments on Sunday where the 19-yard scramble was a great move by him to get the 19 yards, but he had, I think it was Naylor wide open.
Yeah.
So some of it is reading
Jones.
Stuff. Yep. Jones was wide open on that screen on the backside of that. So some of it's reading
but
through
that happens
things.
to everybody.
It does. And I think there are things he can get cleaned up there. I also want to see them probably be a little more efficient getting to the line. And O'Connell talked about that a little bit yesterday too, how often they're coming out of the huddle. And this is my emphasis, not his, how often they're coming out of the huddle late. But he did talk about trying to get some of that procedural stuff cleaned up. And some of that's on the quarterback and that relationship with the head coach getting calls in and all of that kind of stuff. So I think there's still a lot for them to get more efficient with. I think Hawkinson coming back, I'm curious to see what that does. If he just feels like I have a better kind of safety blanket here that can also run after the catch. But yes, it has been noticeable that he's certainly not as efficient as he was early. And if they're going to make the kind of run that they could, it's going to come down to him. I mean, he's going to have to play well enough against teams like the Lions for a minimum of 2 or 3 games in the playoffs, maybe 4, depending on if you're coming out of the first round. So that level of production where it's not 3 points, it's 7, and big plays are not going by the wayside. 3rd and 4s are not going by the wayside, and some of that's Addison too. But you have to hit those things to make runs, and I think that's a lot of where you're just seeing them a little bit off right now.
See you at SoFi on Thursday.
Sounds good.
That's Ben Goessling at Ben Goessling via the X Machine. And thank you, Standard Heating and Air, for providing sponsorship. Eric Nordquist produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Maxwell Fuller guides the great ship Love Covenant back at the flagship for Love Covenant Productions, FM 100.3, KFAN. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, joins 9 to noon, 30 minutes from now.